Hi, I'm Dr. Ebony Stone, and this is the Black Woman in the Corner Office. Hi, I'm Dr. Ebony Stone, and this is the Black Woman in the Corner Office. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Black Woman in the Corner Office. I am your host, Dr. Ebony Stone, and as usual, I am delighted to have our guests with us today. As you can see, I've got a couple of guests today, and we are going to get into something phenomenal that they have created. You guys know I love a good book, right? I wrote a book. Love a good book. I love to listen to a good book. And so I recently had the opportunity to listen to the third book in their trilogy. And that is what we're going to talk about today. I have the authors of the next Little Black Book of Success with me. I have Elaine here with me. So here's what I'm going to do. I was going to introduce you both. I decided I'm going to stop in between. How about that? So first, let's introduce Elaine Brown. She is one of the authors. Elaine, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself? 30 seconds so that everybody knows who they're talking.
First of all, thank you for inviting us, Dr. Ebony. It's wonderful to be here on your show. As you said, my name is Elaine Meryl Brown. I'm co-author of the next Little Black Book of Success, New Laws of Leadership for Black Women, third book in our trilogy. I'm a former HBO media executive. I've had 2 novels published by Random House, and this is our two nonfiction books published by Random House, because our second book, which is a workbook that accompanies the first Little Black Book of Success, we self-published in 2017. And I'm semi-retired and working on my third novel. I'm adapting my first novel to a TV series, and I'm happy to be here because this next stage with the publication of our book is going to take me on a new and different journey with continuing the messaging and the legacy of our third co-author, Marcia Haygood. And Rhonda and I will be speaking about leadership. And I really want to target everyone, but especially the young people coming into the workforce.
Yes, I love that. And we're going to talk about some of the things that I heard in your book about the different generations and how they view the workforce and how things are different from them. So thank you so much for being here. And then we have Rhonda Joy McLean. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you take 30 seconds to tell us about yourself?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ebony. And I just echo Elaine's excitement and gratitude about your giving us this opportunity to talk about our work. We love talking to folks like you who are doing exciting things and amplifying the necessity of Black women to uplift and uphold each other in the world. It's just so important. So I am Rhonda Joy McLean, born in Chicago, raised in North Carolina during the Civil Rights Movement. So at 13, I integrated the high school there with a sheriff with a gun that's 1965, went on to have a 40-year legal career. And I met Elaine and our friend Marcia, whom I'll talk more about in a minute, 25 years ago, when I was then the only Black woman attorney at Time Inc. And Time Inc. published Time Magazine, Fortune, Essence, Money, People, Sports Illustrated, and on and on. So those are my clients for nearly 20 years. And I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity. And at the same time, and Elaine will tell you how we met, because she's really the reason we're here. I want to just mention Marcia Haygood, who is the person who's missing. And Marcia, whom we love dearly and honor with this broadcast, we lost recently. and we'll tell you more about that. But there are three of us who've written these three books, and the voice of each of us is echoed in each book. So we'll share more with you about that later.
I love that. You said the voice of the three of you is echoed in the book, and it absolutely is. But I would like to say the voice of many Black women are in that book. As I was going through the book, there were so many things that I experienced that you actually wrote about that I really want to get into that. Before we do that, let me tell you what I thought when I was going through this book and the structure of the book. And I was listening, right? The book reminds me, the structure reminds me of the 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But in a very positive manner. So the 48 Laws of Power I struggled with because it felt very sinister almost. This book felt structurally the same, like, hey, here's the issue. This is how you handle it. Let me give you some practical ways of handling it. But it felt very positive in nature, very encouraging in nature, very much like, I can do this, right? I do deserve that salary increase. And they told me how to and they told me how to go get it. I can do that, right? Tell me what was the catalyst behind this particular book, the new little black book of success?
Well, I think Rhonda alluded to it. I guess we were kind of speaking before the broadcast, but the pandemic, the way we work has changed since the pandemic, since the introduction of AI, since more of us are now working globally. So actually Random House came to us and thought, hey, here's a great opportunity to do a new, brand new version of the book with new chapters and some updated chapters. So we could, serve our audience. And that's what we attempted to do. And I appreciate your saying that, the book read very positive to you, because that obviously was all done by design. We wanted to uplift and encourage, and we wanted the chapters to be, sort of bite-sized and topical, so people could find, they don't have to read it like a novel. If they're struggling with a particular issue or want more information on a particular subject, we've made it easy for them to find it in our new book as well.
Yes, I love the bite-sized nature of
Well, everybody has a short attention span. And we really, when we wrote the first book 15 years ago, it was published in 2010, we thought we were writing for college graduates, people entering the workforce. But over time, and we also thought we were really focusing on women of color. But what we've come to understand is that each of our books can be used by anyone, because the leadership principles are evergreen. Leaders are leaders. You got to do the hard work. You got to stand tall. You got to rely on your gut. But the way you lead has a lot to do with the way you were raised, what your moral foundation is, and what you believe in. So we found that lots of people, older people, white people, Black people, people from other countries, use our books as guides. And we're excited.
Absolutely. Before we started to record, and I was saying, as I was reading the book, I kept saying, okay, they covered it all. What could be in the rest of the book? And then I would go, oh yeah, that did happen, right? And so you mentioned the pandemic, and I remember just like it was yesterday. I remember it was March 12th, and my employer at the time made the announcement that we were going to go home for 2 weeks to test the system. And I really hadn't come to grips with the fact that this would really be a global pandemic that would shift the way we do life, not just work.
Yes, everything.
For the rest of our lives. And I remember being a couple weeks in and saying, I am regulated to a 2x2 box. A Teams screen. And then I remember a couple of weeks going past, and the screen, the boxes just started to have pictures in them because people would cut the cameras off. And I don't know that people have cut those cameras back on the way they should.
Not all.
Not at all. And I remember reading hearing in your book, in order for us as Black women Rhonda, you were just saying the latest statistic you read was 600,000 plus of us
Yes.
been out of work since 2025.
Yes.
In order for us to be seen, one of the things that you guys mentioned is that you got to turn that camera on
Yes.
Yes.
in these workplaces. How else can we be seen in a society that doesn't really want to see us, right?
Mhm.
Jobs
Mhm.
left and right, so I take that as we don't want to see you. How else can we be seen once we turn that camera on? What else can we do?
Well, I think that you have to do all the things that we have been doing because we've been made to think that we were invisible unless they wanted something from us. And what I learned as a short chocolate woman from the South, who was usually younger than other people, but often the assumption was that you were not in the room to run the meeting. You were in the room to take the meetings for the minutes for the meeting or to serve the coffee and tea, none of which I do. If there's coffee in the room, I'm not moving. If there's I'm telling you, because I was a lawyer and there were often I was the only woman in the room. But here are the things. Number one, I agree with Elaine, and she wrote it so beautifully. You got to turn that camera on, whether you feel like it or not. And then you can't just turn it on. You have to be active. So just the way we used to be told, make your suggestions, speak up, sort of insist that you be heard. And there's a way you can do that without being considered the angry Black women. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you need to be assertive. But I think insight, learn to use your icons in the camera. And then if they ignore the chat, or if they ignore your waved hand, they ignore the raised hand where you put that thing up, then I learned reach out to other people, get a comrade. And then we both go in and say, well, during this last meeting, no one acknowledged us. And here are the ideas we wanted to share about how to solve that problem. So I think that in every version of Black woman I've ever seen, we've had to be creative in order to move ahead.
Yes.
So I think you still have to do it.
Yes. And also find ways to connect with people in person, even though everyone's on a Zoom camera, unless you're part of a global team. But I think it does create. You have to create an effort. Take the initiative, and that's another way of being seen, by being the first person to come forward, or being the first person to offer coffee, or the first person to have sort of an offsite or a meeting after the meeting, even. Just so you can get your points across, or add, any comments you might have wanted to add in the meeting but weren't able to.
Yes.
But there are so many of us, Dr. Ebony, who still don't turn our cameras on. And
Yes.
I think that's important. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not quite sure why that is.
It's interesting. I've asked during the pandemic. I was leading a training team, and so it was important that cameras be on. And so I was insisting that cameras be on. But what I realized is that sometimes, depending on who you're leading,
Mm-hmm.
they may not be in the home by themselves or have
Right.
a side space
Right.
where they feel comfortable, because maybe there are other people they share the home with that you will see coming out, or maybe they just don't want to share their home space.
Yes.
Some people are trying to create a divide between work and home. So I think there are a lot of reasons, but I don't think that people understand the consequence. I think it's important that if you're not willing or can't, right? Because some people simply can't. You can't turn the camera on. It is important to do the thing that you said, to find ways to meet in person.
And you also want to create a safe space also as your team leader, because I remember, there are some a person who worked, a colleague who actually did a Zoom call from her office. From her closet.
Yes.
And it was like, it was okay, because, people do understand that the circumstances aren't the same, that things are different, and not every, people have, young children or package deliveries, and, so they need to, be accessible and available. But it is important to have your camera on, and my experience has been usually the person who doesn't have the camera on does it consistently. So, it's okay not to have it on occasion or a few times, but try to consistently be seen.
I think one of the things I've learned, I belong to a number of organizations that mentor young people. And during COVID, we were mentoring some really beautiful freshmen at a high school academy in Harlem. And they were, as you described, Dr. Ebony, it was a shock. We all had to pivot 360 degrees to this new system over the weekend. And
Yes.
many of the students, many of whom were athletes, they had all these wonderful extracurricular activities that they could no longer do. So they were stuck in their homes, stuck on these screens, and really very unhappy. And I think
Mhm.
some of the screens not on is I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm down, and I really don't want to be here.
Mm.
So one of the things to build on what Elaine said is I think leaders must then build a safer space and also trust and a welcoming space. So we started out. I set up an opportunity we have several doctors who have different specialties, and we were exposing these freshmen to possible careers in the health fields. So we had the doctors in their offices, in their white coats, with their stethoscopes. We started out with none of the girls had their cameras on, but by they could ask questions even with the cameras off, and gradually we built a sense of trust. There was humor, there was fun, we welcomed them, and one by one, by the end of the session, every camera was turned on. So some of it has to do with how safe do you feel in the space,
Mm.
your workspace, and then if you don't feel safe, what can you do to feel safer? Is there some way for you to reach out using some of the strategies that we've outlined in the book? Network. There are ways you can network remotely. So even if you're in Michigan and I'm in New York and Elaine is in New Jersey, we can still have an offsite, online where we say, well, what are some ways we can support each other in these meetings? So let's
Yeah,
strategize.
absolutely. I love that. So I've mentioned this before. Two young ladies that I speak to every single day. One is in Louisiana. One is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So they're in New Orleans and Charlotte. And I've never met them in person. We met at a coaching intensive online, right? So there are ways online to do that. But you speak about the youth and what happened to them during COVID. I had a firsthand seat. My children in 2020, when COVID hit, were in the sixth grade, in the
Mhm.
ninth grade. So, very pivotal years. I saw exactly what that did. I also had a nephew who was very close to me who was a senior in high school. And so I watched those things firsthand. And they are now adults, right? I
Yeah.
have a nephew who graduated college. My daughter is in her third year of college, and my youngest son is graduating high school this year. But I watched the impact that it had on them. And you
Yes.
talk about how the different generations see the workplace differently in the book, from the baby boomers to Generation X to the millennials. What advice do you have for us as Black women, I would say cross generationally, to help mentor one another? You talk about exposing high school students to different careers, but once you're in these careers, what advice do you guys have for us to mentor one another or sponsor one another in these environments?
Well, I think, like you said, post the pandemic, I think this is the first time that maybe 4 generations are actually working in the same environment together. So it's a challenge for everyone because each of these generations works differently. And I think it's important just to respect each other's kind of, the work ethic. And I think there can be cross mentoring. And so the younger generation can help the older generation and the older generation can help the younger generation. Obviously the younger generation is very tied into social media, text messages, but that's not always the best way to conduct business. It's usually through emails and letters and actually, former grammar with sentences and periods, things like that. So I think it's a great opportunity to really help each other and not get frustrated, by each other. So the
I
younger
agree.
generation, doesn't, would say, oh, this person, they're old and not want to be bothered. And the older generation, oh, these kids are young, let's, not be bothered. Everyone's got to come together and help each other.
Yeah.
I agree. And we had a reverse mentoring program at Time Inc. that I've tried to continue. I'm an executive coach now, so I'm working with leaders, primarily women and men of color across the country. And like you, Dr. Ebony, most of them I've never met, and they're everywhere. But one of the things that I've suggested that helped me a lot at time is to have a young person shadow you and also help you by teaching you things that you may not know. As Elaine just outlined, they really are good on the tech. They don't need to read. Just before I was getting on, I had trouble accessing your platform. I had to struggle to get to
Mm.
settings and get on. I figured it out, thank God. But if my son had been here or if my nephew had been here, they don't have to read anything. They can just look at your device and figure it out. So that's a skill that can help me. So I suggest both. You suggested, Ebony, you talked about peer mentoring, which is something that Marsha and Elaine and I have done for each other for these 25 years. But the reverse mentoring and peer mentoring, I think, are good programs to have.
Absolutely. I chuckle, Elaine, when you were saying, sentences have periods and you need
Comma.
um, yes, because my children always they laugh at me when I send them text messages and they're like, Mom, what's all the periods and the commas? And I'm like, that's how you write. And then they'll send me a text message and I have difficulty reading it sometimes if it's a longer one because the periods and the commas are not where they're supposed to be.
Mhm. Some of the abbreviations they use.
Yes.
Yes. So that's why I chuckle. But I had a in-person
Mhm.
recording to kick off season 2 of the podcast. And my daughter, both of my boys, my nephew, and a couple young folks from church said, hey, we're going to come in and help you. And when I tell you those kids did amazing, I had
Mm.
people asking me, can we use your crew? And I was, uh, yeah, I guess. I'm like, they're just my kids. But what they know about
Yeah.
lighting and sound and technology
Yeah.
and social media is absolutely, it's amazing. They grew up with one of
Yep.
these in their hands, first of all.
Yes.
They,
Yes.
the phone, I have a nephew who is 2.
Mhm.
And if you just hand him the phone, he he does whatever he wants to do with it. He can get to YouTube, he can watch his cartoons, he sees the commercials, like he knows the little skip button is down there. He can't read, he just sees it and he
That's
like
hilarious.
skips the commercials. Like it's absolutely it's crazy. So
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah, and these are the kids who are going to grow up with AI, because
Yeah.
it's going to be second nature to them. They just gravitate. They're like little sponges, and which
Mhm.
is the way
But these
technology is.
That's right. But these same people are going to have to lead other people. So
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why we feel and we're so happy that you have this podcast. But we want to share the message that, yes, you have different tools, but people management, leading people is a people management
right,
system.
right.
So AI doesn't conduct performance reviews, although people are trying to use it to do that. Just like you may recall, there have been several instances where people have mistakenly used technology to fire or lay off thousands of people. I just saw it the other day. And it invariably backfires. Everybody is frustrated and angry. And I'm sorry, it's painful. I've had to lay off people, I've had to fire people, as well as hire people and develop them. So have you. But
yeah,
the people skills for our young people, we can't forget them. It's wonderful for them to have these tech skills. They still have to know how to connect with
Yeah,
other people.
yes,
yes, and I think there is a hole there for many of them because of the pandemic.
yes,
Yes,
Depending on where they were in life at that
yes,
moment, their
yes,
social
yeah.
skills are extremely impacted.
yes.
One of
Social
the
skills.
things,
Yeah.
yeah, as I was reading or listening to the book, I kept thinking as I would go through a chapter, I would think about an experience that I had that
Mhm.
like brought it to life. Um, and I was reminded of so many things that happened to me. One of the things that happened to me when I was in actually in my doctorate program. So at this point, I think it had caught me off guard. So I'm going to share it with you guys because I would like to know what you would tell people to do. I know what I would tell them to do, but also because I would love for you guys to share some of those stories that caused you to write a particular chapter, right? I remember I was in my doctoral program, only woman, only Black person, right? And I had been put in a group. There were three of us. And we were told, I don't even remember what the assignment was, but whatever the assignment was, when we would meet, one of the gentlemen would say, "Oh, sweetie, yes. Oh, sweetie, just hold on a minute. Oh, honey, that's okay." And I kept going, well, first time I didn't stop it, right? That was my
Mhm.
mistake. I should have had a conversation with them. But finally, I got to the point where I was like, okay, let me talk to you for a second. And I was like, hey, I don't even know if you realize you're doing it, but
Mhm.
I would prefer that you not refer to me as honey or sweetie or baby, right? And I was prepared, right, for the conversation, but I was not prepared for his response. It just threw me for such a loop. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. What would you like for me to call you?" And I was like, "Well, Ebony, Mrs. Stone, you didn't ask John what to call him.
Mm.
Yes.
Why did you ask me?" And so I thought about that story as I was reading it. You were talking about speaking up when things are happening that you don't want to happen, and pulling people to the side and having conversations with them. I'm curious: are there are there stories that you guys experienced that brought you to writing a particular chapter that still sit with you today?
Um, I'd like to start by channeling Marsha, who's the one who's missing from the three of us. We lost her recently, and we dedicate all of our work to her memory. I can tell you that Marsha, who started out as an executive secretary and made her way up to be the senior vice president of a major movie company, Orion, one of the things,
Executive vice president.
yes, thank you.
EVP.
Thank you. A senior official. So it's a long arc of a very uplifting trajectory, and she's been a role model for all of us and for thousands of other people. But she taught me a couple of things. So and then I'll give her example in mind. The first is for years she was like you, and she was the only Black woman in the C-suite, the only woman, and the only person of color for years.
Mm,
And she was head of HR. So there was a lot of stuff going on. And she would say that there were people in her office who just did not treat her well. And they were overt about not liking
mm,
her. They couldn't fire her because she was fabulous at her job. And one of the things I thought is, why would you stay there? Like, why would you stay in a place where people were, it seemed to me just mean, if not cruel? And one of the things she taught me that has helped me to this day is she said, well, I'm not going to let anybody else's foolishness get in the way of my goals for myself. I know what I want to get done in this job. I know I have she had four sons that she raised, and I have things I want to do for myself and my family. And as long as I'm doing my job well, and as long as I'm able to benefit from being here, I'm not going to let anybody run me off my job. I don't
Mm.
need them to like me. I need them to respect me. And
yes.
that helped me a great deal. So that's Ms. Marsha, channeling her. For Rhonda Joy, um, I started off, well, I won't go into a long thing. I will just say that in many instances, I've been working over 50 years. I have been mistaken for the secretary, the messenger, the mailroom person, anybody except the lawyer and leader that I am and was in that situation. And I've learned to let people kind of, fall in their own soup. A couple of times, people, because they make an assumption and don't ask me the way the man asked you what to call you, I've let them kind of fall into their own soup. So
Yeah.
what I might have said, which might have been different from you, because I'm from North Carolina, where everybody calls people honey and baby. And so I do that myself. I have to be careful. I've been in New York 40 years. I touch people and I call them honey and baby, and people don't like that. So I have to watch it. Some people like it. But I might have said to the man, well, honey, what do you think we ought to do in this meeting?
Mm,
And maybe blah, 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 blah. Because I find that people hear it differently. They don't hear what they're saying, but they will certainly hear what you're saying. And I've
ab-
done that. I've done that.
Oh, I love that. So it's so interesting. There are instances that I'm in, I can tell you just from having a conversation with you. If I was having a conversation with you outside of here and you said, honey, blah, 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 I probably wouldn't even hear it. The
Yes.
reason it registered is because it was only being done to me,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
It was purposeful, but I love that. In that moment, I didn't think to call him honey, but let it happen again. I'm gonna take
There you go. We read it. We read it.
Yes, I'm ready. Yes.
And Miss Marcia has often said, to follow up with that type of microaggression, it's like, well, tell me what do you mean by that? Help me understand that. Help me understand why you call me honey and no one else in the room. To
Yes.
get them to think about, their own, issues and where that is coming from
Mhm.
as a teachable lesson.
Mhm.
Could have been another way to handle that situation.
Absolutely. Elaine, are there stories that you think of that poured into the book for you? Personal stories,
Oh, you
maybe?
know what, Dr. Ebony, we wrote the book that we wished we had when we were entering the workforce. At least, I know for myself, because I still read our book. I still read our first book. I still have to be reminded how important networking is. And, especially now that I'm kind of retired, working remotely, how I need to engage more with people and organizations. I mean, Marcia was a super networker, like, as I'm sure Rhonda is as well, whereas Marcia's calendar maybe on a quarterly basis could be filled with, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 networking events. My calendar might only have, 3, 4, 5, but that's okay because that's, the person that I am. We're not suggesting that everyone have to, fill their calendar up with those types of meetings. But each of the chapters, I would say we have 40 chapters in this new book. Each of those 40 chapters resonates with me. And, there's information, Rhonda mentioned peer mentoring that I wish I had when I was still working in the corporate space, because no one taught me these tools, which is why I'm passionate about helping young people, because imagine how further along in their careers they could be if they only had these leadership, if they were only aware of these leadership principles that they should follow up on and maybe study a little bit more and actually use. So, I mean, I would say each chapter, one in particular doesn't come to mind. Maybe the networking chapter. Maybe you don't need to have all the answers to take advantage of the opportunities. In which I thought, oh, gee, I'd have to have X number of skills in order to apply for this job, when we now know, studies have indicated that you don't, if you have 70% of the skills, even 50% of the skills, you should move forward and apply to those jobs. And most people actually do get their jobs through networking. So that is it's a relationship building skill. It's not just an exchange of business cards. So all of that is very important. Negotiating a salary, as you alluded to earlier. I don't know if we were on the record or off the record, but yeah, these are all things people need to have access to. So I hope people do get our book and enjoy our book and embrace it, because it's helpful, especially during this time when we all need to be lifted because of the 600,000 of us who are and by the way, the 600,000 of us who have been laid off are women who are, highly educated. These are women who have degrees.
Yes.
And who are sort of opting to become entrepreneurs or just take a break, which is well deserved. We also talk about that too, because rest is important.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
And to build on that, one of the things I would say that I know you know well, Dr. Ebony, and I'm sure as you're working with people, but one of the things I learned as someone who's looked at thousands of resumes over the years, had many interns both in the public and private sector, both in legal and non-legal jobs, is that I am telling you, I have never, ever met a young white man who wouldn't apply for a job whether he knew beans about it or not. He could know nothing and would apply. And because I hired quite a few interns every year at the Federal Trade Commission for 11 years. And I had to beg Black people to apply. I had to go to law schools and beg them. And then I found that I really had to work hardest on the women. And over the years, I've found that women of all stripes, any age, any color, out of the 10 things on a job description, if they can only do 9, they will not apply for the job. Whereas mostly young white men, if they can only do one thing out of the 10, they will not only apply for the job, they might get the job. So that whole approach to assuming you have to know everything to do anything, we've got to move away from that, particularly now. We can't know everything. Nobody knows everything. It's changing too rapidly. But I did want to make that point. Each of us in our own ways works with others. And we really want you to encourage, to stand up for yourself, stand on the 3 or 4 or 5 things that you do know. You'll learn the other stuff once you get on the job.
Yes, yes. I chuckle because not only will the white male apply for the job and get the job, they will then negotiate a higher salary.
Oh, please. Yes. Amen. Amen.
Yes. So if you can get us to apply, and if we get the job, we just accept the salary that is offered to us,
yes.
which is never the salary.
No.
Right.
Never the salary.
There's always room for negotiation. There's always that little wiggle room.
That's right.
Yes.
And I will tell you that these ladies that Elaine was kind enough to host this dinner that got us started all those years ago, I never even knew. I mean, I grew up in the Bible Belt South, where even to talk about money was considered sinful and wicked and definitely unladylike. So it took a while before I even bothered to compare. Like, I didn't know I should be comparing my salary to other people, and I didn't know about any of that. And at the law firm where I came to in New York on Madison Avenue, I found that it was the other associates who did do a comparison and found that we were underpaid by 10 grand each. And so we made a play and we put forward our arguments and we each got a $10,000 raise. But I have to tell you, that was not my idea. I was glad to have a job. I wasn't trying to, I was hiding, I was not, because it just wasn't anything I was comfortable with. But these ladies, Elaine among them, Elaine and Marcia and the others, the next time when I was at Time and I wanted to negotiate a promotion for myself, the job did not exist. So I created a description of a job that I wanted that didn't exist. And it was putting together 2 positions and adding some other responsibilities. And then I rehearsed what I was going to say with these ladies. So peer mentoring writ large, I actually rehearsed my words on how to ask for more money and how to get a job that didn't exist yet. And I got both. It took me 2 years, but I did. So sisters can really uplift other sisters, and we can help in real ways make a change in your life and your career.
Yes, it's that it's community.
Yes,
right? Peer mentoring, but it's community where you start to feel safe and you have those discussions and you discover that you're underpaid by $10,000 or more. I'll never forget the first time I took a job, and I was happy for the job. I was proud of the job, and I was doing a great job. And then it came time to do annual reviews and salary increases, and I was going through my team and I said, are you kidding me? The worst performer on my team is making the most money, and not just making the most money, the worst performer on the team is making more money than me. Oh no, this can't happen. This cannot happen. I don't care how long they have been here. I don't know. This can't happen. But it's scary. It's scary to go in and start talking about money and risk. It feels like you're risking not having a job at all.
It does. So, it's very scary.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to, we talk about just keeping a personal leadership notebook where you can keep track of all your accomplishments, because many of us take what we do for granted. We don't even realize how brilliant and talented we are, because we all do a great job. We're all good at what we do, but it's important to, when you do have those conversations, is to know that, what projects you've completed, maybe what feedback you've gotten on those projects, or how many additional responsibilities you've taken on, so that you begin to build your case. Like Rhonda said, when you go in and start to have those type conversations. And just getting back to something you mentioned earlier, I mean, the reason we all kind of got together was when I was invited to take a leadership class by HBO. As a creative person, I never even considered myself to be a leader, even though I was leading like 3 creative teams. And it wasn't until I was in this class when I realized, oh my goodness, there are actually skills that you can learn. Like, not all leaders are born, leaders can be made.
Yes.
And here are some skills that I have that, I didn't know they had a name attached to them, but here are some other skills that I'm not so good at that I need to learn. And so when I just realized that networking wasn't just about an exchange of business cards and calling people when you needed them, I began to develop relationships. And that's when I made my first call to Marcia Haygood, who was an EVP at New Line Cinema at the time. And I stepped outside my comfort zone. That's another chapter that really resonated with me. It's scary to do that sometimes, but we have to do it in order to grow. But there's no discomfort, there's no growth. And I was kind of prepared for Marcia to say, no, I'm too busy to have dinner or, to go out, I'm an EVP, whatever. That she never said that. She said, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When is this dinner happening? And we went to, and then Marcia, I invited a couple of other ladies, and Marcia invited Rhonda. That was my first time meeting Rhonda. And that's when we all had dinner at Henry's, a restaurant uptown in Harlem. And that was the beginning. Let me just say that. That was the beginning. 3 months later.
Yes. And that was March of 2000.
March of 2000. So
Yep.
it's 26, almost 26 years.
Almost 26 years. Yes.
Are you all still in touch with the other ladies as well?
We are, and we're closer with some of them than others, because most of us after retirement, many of us, either the companies changed or were sold, or, we didn't all work in the same company. We worked under the rubric of Time Warner. But what I love about Elaine is that, and what I think is so important, I am probably, from what you're seeing here, more outgoing than she is, although I have my quiet side and I do love to read at home. But one of the things that Marcia and I would always push Elaine to say is, without her, we wouldn't be here. There would be no books. So even though she didn't originally see herself as a leader, she's the one that came to us and said, would you help me write this book? And we were like, what? What book? Because we were just meeting quarterly, having drinks and, peer mentoring, but having a good time. Sometimes we went to Broadway, sometimes we went to jazz clubs. But basically it was just, helping each other survive and thrive. But it was Elaine who said, we're giving each other all this good advice. We wish we'd had this advice earlier. Let's write this down and look at where we are.
I know, for the next generation, because we had all this valuable information and exchange of conversation and experiences. It's like we need to package this for the next generation, so they can learn from our. And Marcia would always say missteps, even I would call them mistakes, but we could learn from our missteps and hopefully be better. Just be better.
Well, listen, you guys, you have definitely packaged it. It is a beautiful work of art, right? And what I love about the book is that even if you can't sit down and read it all the way through, you don't have to start at the beginning.
No.
And at the end. You can say, I'm trying to figure out what I'm about to do with my hair. And you could go right to the chapter.
That's right.
About hair and the Crown Act and all of that, right? Whatever you're going through, it's not it doesn't read like a novel, which is great. It reads more like a not even an instruction manual. What am I trying to say? Like a
self-help guide, anthology. I don't know. It just
we describe this as the roadmap to the future. So we want it to be something Elaine referred, and you referred to it being bite-sized, but we really wanted you to be able to start in the middle, start at the beginning, start at the end. We tried to make the table of contents so descriptive that you can look and see, okay, I want to deal with performance reviews, or I want to deal with networking. I don't like networking, but I got to do it. So we're trying to make it accessible and usable and practical, because you need strategies, it's tough out there. We don't.
What I found is, I used to say I don't like networking, but I found that I love networking. I don't like networking events. Most networking events, all people want to do is come give you their card and figure out how they can close the deal with you. Right. And that's not, I think networking is what you guys did, right? Let's come together. Let's have conversations. Eventually, it may be a book. Eventually, it may be some other business. It may be a brick and mortar even. Who knows what it may turn into. But let's just start with the relationship. Let's
Yes.
just build the relationship. So I found that it's not networking that I don't like. I actually love the networking. I love building the relationships. I love getting to know people. So I'm curious. So you guys started out just coming together quarterly, as you said. Maybe you're having a drink, you're going to see a play, whatever it may be. Maybe there is a group of younger women who are doing the same thing. How can they leverage that group that they have right now, where they're just going to dinner maybe once a quarter? How do they leverage that group to propel their careers?
I,
Well,
I,
I would go ahead, Elaine.
oh, I
No,
was
no,
going
you
to
go.
say, well, having conversations, I know one thing that we all talk about, and Marcia sort of taught me. I mean, it's a powerful word. And it was just recently, like few decades ago, introduced to my vocabulary, and that was being strategy. And that is, the early part of my career was not strategic, although I had goals,
Yes.
but it really wasn't a strategy. So these young ladies who are coming together, kind of think about, what is their why? What do they want? Obviously, they come together. They have a lot of things in common. And they should talk about what some of their challenges are and share, as long as there's, a trusted space. And these ladies become part of your success team or board of directors, as some people would call them. But they should also try to help each other, see what they can do to help each other to achieve their goals, or network with other people, or join other organizations, so that, their time is intentional, it's purposeful.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
what our time wound up being, essentially.
Yes. Well, we are very much about the sisterhood. We think of these gatherings of sisters as a sisterhood, as a community, as you referred to earlier, Dr. Ebony. And we would agree. And I agree with everything Elaine has said. Marcia would say these things in terms of networking and these gatherings. The first thing is, who do you know? Who do you need to know? And then who needs to know you? Those were questions I had not thought of before, in terms of, you don't need to know everybody.
Right.
Be more strategic, as Elaine just said, in your networking. And then in these gatherings, it may be that Rhonda knows a lot about, writing. I really love writing grants. And then Elaine is a wonderful creative thinker, and she launched Showtime, because she's not even going to tell you that. She launched Showtime at HBO. She's a bad mamma jamma. And so here's the things. What are the strengths in your group? So, we know Rose knows this, Ebony knows this, Rhonda knows this, Elaine knows this. How can we then pull those skill sets together and help each other? It doesn't have to be formal, but it's just like, if we're going to talk about negotiations, well, I would always go to Marsha first, because she was the best negotiator I've met in my life. So if we know Ebony is the best researcher, so then let's talk to her about, how can we learn more about the job search? We're trying to figure out, what is that company really going to be like? We know what it says on the website, but do you know anybody there? Because I don't want to get over there and get hung out to dry. So
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Listen, there is so much in this book, right? You're talking about strategy. You're talking about being intentional. And as you guys are talking, I'm thinking, okay, but I wanted to ask that question about the book. So, I wanted to. So you talked about rest, so I want to sit there for a minute. I think rest is so important, but I also think that it's strategic. I don't think as a whole, we don't see it that way, but it's very strategic. I've shared my story. Many people right now are talking about burnout, and people are overwhelmed. And I remember sitting in my car, because I felt like it was the only place of quiet, of peace. I remember the tears running down my face when my therapist told me, "Hey, you got to stop. You got to sit down. You really need a hard reset." That was the term that she used. And I am grateful for that moment, that I decided to choose me, and I decided to step away from the hustle and bustle for a little while, and to heal and to get what I needed. It was because I pushed really hard through 2020 and 2021 and 2022, as a lot of people did. But I never stopped to process the pandemic. I never stopped to process what was happening because, like I told you, where my children were, I felt like I needed to be strong for them.
Mm.
Yes.
Leading a training team, and we were bringing on people virtually, and I knew that was odd, and I felt like I needed to be strong for them. So I was
Mhm.
strong for everybody but myself. I didn't slow down for years. And
Mhm.
so finally it all came
Mhm.
to a stop, and I had to rest, and I am glad I did. And so you talk about rest, you talk about stepping away if you need to, right? When you talk about career transitions, you also talk about, hey, if you need to stop just for a moment, go
Mhm.
ahead and do that. What advice can you share? The advice, I know it's in the book, but can you share the advice that you have for people? One, on how do you find the courage
Mm.
to rest, because it is courageous sometimes.
Mm.
It
Mhm.
is. It
And then
is.
two, after the rest,
Mhm.
how do you find the courage to get back in it?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Elaine, go
yeah,
ahead. Go
yeah.
ahead.
I think first, like you said, Dr. Ebony, you need to first acknowledge that you do need to rest and that you deserve to rest. I think a lot of us, as especially as Black women, think we need to do it all, and we put ourselves last on our to-do list, and we need to move ourselves up on that to-do list because we burn out and we're not helpful. We can't help anybody else, so it kind of defeats the purpose to try to keep running when your batteries running low. So rest is, and plus it's important to recharge and reflect. Rest also leaves us open to receive creative energy. It leaves us open to receive information on solutions or how to, how to do life differently or in a way that's better for us. So, and rest could be something active, like taking ourselves to the gym or just walking on the treadmill or reading a book. It's kind of, we need to separate ourselves from the day to day. I often call it sometimes it's getting out of my head and getting into my body, giving my head a break. My head needs a rest. I just need to do something a little bit more physical. But I think rest is going to re-energize us.
Yes.
And we need to pause. I mean, press that pause button and take a break. Yeah,
Yes.
Mhm.
do ourselves a favor. So.
And
Absolutely.
I'm coming at it from a different point of view. Like you, Dr. Ebony, I had a crossroads. I've been hospitalized for depression. I'm a type A, I'm a Leo, I'm a firstborn of a firstborn of a firstborn,
Yeah.
all little short, fast walking Black women. And we're very bossy, and we're the go to people in our families to get things done. So
Yes.
there's something wonderful about that, but there's also, you can put pressure on yourself that you can't afford to stop because so many people are depending on you to
Yes.
get things done. And so, like you, I had the pressure. And then I found that I wasn't sleeping literally at all. I went several months, and your body can't survive, as Elaine is saying, without rest. So I too learned to go to therapy. That wasn't a bad thing. It didn't mean I was a bad Christian. It didn't mean I was a bad Baptist or a
Right.
bad daughter, because my parents were appalled. You're going to go tell somebody all our family secrets. But I tell you, that therapy saved my life. And I was grateful to God that my therapist was a Black woman who
Yeah.
herself had gone through some things. So you'll see that just like we say coaches are not just for athletes, we say there's no shame in seeking help. So I think Elaine is right. You need to listen to your body, rest and pause, and then also give yourself permission to seek help if you need it. It may be, if you're a person of faith, as I am, I think, maybe it's a minister that you go to or a chaplain. Um, if you're comfortable going to a professional, I think therapy can be life saving, and thankfully there are more of us in that profession. But if you don't want to do those things, I agree with Elaine. Maybe just a walk. Maybe just to walk in the morning. Maybe you sit in your car, but hopefully you don't cry. Maybe you listen to some gospel music, you
Mm-hmm.
know, something. But I think you need to give yourself permission to figure out what is it that works for you. Don't feel like you've got to do what so and so's doing over there, because I have friends who are running marathons around the world. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to Germany to run 20 miles. That's not what I think is going to do it for me. But I'm going to listen to some Richard Smallwood on
Yes.
YouTube and have some prayer and I'm gonna feel something better. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, my husband is gonna listen to some gospel music. Okay,
Hey,
so
I'm telling you.
by way of him, I'm gonna hear the gospel music too. And
Yeah.
it's amazing what it does for me. My son is a musician, and so until I got married and I had children, and music was always a part of my life. Like I love to dance, but the way music is used in our home now is very different. Excuse me.
Mhm.
I also somewhere in here have a desire to run a marathon. It ain't happened yet, but
I don't have
God bless
I
you.
don't
God
have
bless you, my sister. God bless you. Go ahead on. Go ahead on. Run for us. Well, run for me because Elaine is in great shape. So Elaine probably could run a marathon. I cannot.
I'm at the gym. I don't know the cardio. I got to keep up. This winter weather is keeping me indoors, so I got to wait till spring. But just to add what Rhonda said, Dr. Ebony, I actually am seeing a female Christian therapist. So I'm doing that and going to the gym and listening to praise music because there's, it's just, the times that we're in, I feel there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, the world is very different. It's changed, since this new person got into our country. I can't even watch the news anymore. I mean, I kind of stay away. I'm doing a lot of streaming services these days and a lot of reading. I mean, that's one thing that because of what's happening in the world, it's forcing me to read more.
yes.
But I agree with Rhonda. I mean, if we can't shut it down ourselves, maybe we need to talk to someone else and just figure out what it is that we need to do to keep our sanity.
We need to find those safe spaces, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Especially, you mentioned the this weather, right? We are actually recording this. It'll air several weeks after, or a couple weeks after, but we're recording this on January 30th, of 2026, where the entire country has just been hit with just crazy weather.
Yes.
I'm here in Detroit where it's gotten as low, the temperatures have gotten as low as real temperatures like -15.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the wind chill makes it even colder.
Yeah.
And I was speaking with someone in a southern state who was saying, like, usually I'm okay this time of year, but I think this weather is contributing to how I feel.
Yeah.
And so I know that you share it's okay to just say, I need help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need help because
Yes.
we all do. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I am a huge proponent of therapy. I have a Black female Christian therapist. I love her with my whole heart. And, there were times, and I thank her so much for getting me through, helping to get me through the roughest time of my life. And I thank her for saying, like, hold on, let's just pray. Let's just
Yes.
pray.
Yes.
Because many people feel like if you go to therapy, to your point, Rhonda, they feel like you're saying no to God.
Yes.
And I'm not. I'm not saying no.
No, not at all.
So I appreciate her for that. If we can spend some time, I'd love to talk about the process. I know we've talked a lot about the book. I'd like to talk a little bit about the process of writing the book because someone might be listening or a group of individuals who want to write a book. Can you tell me a little bit about what the process looked like in writing this book?
Sure.
Sure. Well, first of all, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. There are three of us, so we engage in some really great conversations. Once we establish, the 40 chapters and name them, we kind of divvied up the work so that each of us kind of started on chapters, and then we would share chapters with the group, and each of us would have an opportunity to contribute to that chapter, question one another about the chapter, add to that chapter, just make the chapter better. So you have, we in our first book we said 90 years of experience sort of poured into one particular chapter. So that's, and I feel, Dr. Ebony, that you have recognized or realized the results of that because you feel like you said initially that we covered a lot of bases.
Yes.
We talked about everything, and we tried to. Because we wanted to help as many women as possible or everyone as possible, and we wrote the book we wish we had. So it's a labor of love, really. But that was a lot of fun writing.
And I would only add that I do want to talk a little bit about failure and the importance of taking risks, as Elaine has said, stepping outside of your comfort zone. Elaine had already written two successful murder mysteries, really beautiful books, Lemon City
Yeah.
and Playing by the Rules.
Yeah.
Yes,
What's the first one?
Lemon City, Lemon City.
Okay.
And you really should get them. They're wonderful books, but they are fiction. And this book is not fiction. So when we first thought about it, we thought we had the structure of the book and we had the laws, but the three of us, we divided it up, and Elaine wrote a third and Marsha wrote a third and I wrote a third, but they look very different. We're very different people. So Elaine's was the shortest and mine was the longest. I'm a lawyer. I love words. So why use one word when 12 would do? And then Marsha was in the middle, very professional HR. So hers looked like a college professor had written it because, of course, it was perfect. But it didn't look like one book. It looked like three little booklets written by three different people. So and nobody wanted to publish it. So we hired an editor who sat down with us at B. Smith's, a Black-owned restaurant, which I wish we're still here. And then we sat for 5 hours with this editor, and she said, you're not speaking with one voice. It's clear that there's three different people and it's three different styles, and it's just not knitting together well. So then the process Elaine described, where we then said, well, let's each write, but then we'll rotate it around. So you see what I wrote, I see what you wrote, and then I can edit on your stuff, you can edit on my stuff. So hopefully now the book feels like we're writing directly to you, the person who's reading it, because we talk to you directly. And then we hope you feel like it's one voice, not three, speaking to you. Yeah. But we didn't do it the first time. So I don't want people to think that we got it all right the first time. We didn't. We just kept going. And we call Elaine our coach because let me tell you, she's a good nudger. Where is that chapter, Rhonda Joy? You said that you were going to get it in last week. I don't see no chapters in my email. So she was after us because we were all working full time, raising families, and trying to do this book.
In other words, I get beat up a lot, Dr. Ebony, but that's okay. I was being strategic. We needed to get the work done. This is important work.
We got it done thanks to her. And then we met at each other's, we would meet after work. We would go to restaurants. We would meet in each other's homes. We would meet in each other's conference rooms and then play some Michael Jackson in the back and get to talking. I do want to talk about the mama-isms and the shout outs. In the first book, after each chapter, we had a culture code because we tried to explain like what it is that we as Black women do to sabotage ourselves and how can we stop doing that and stop hurting each other. And then also there's something called mama-isms, things your mama used to say that we think would be appropriate. Your mama, your aunt, your cousin, your Sunday school teacher, somebody. So people love those. We have 200 of those in book one. Book two is a workbook where there are exercises. So you really have to do the work of setting goals and, really building your own career out. And we tell you how to do that. This book, we have shout outs. Yeah. So for each of the chapters, we try to find either from us, things we say, or from people out in the world who are world-renowned leaders, things that might be, on point.
Yes, and they were absolutely amazing. It was. I love the shout outs, by the way. Do you know how many shout outs you have in the?
Elaine probably knows because she found most of them.
I feel like in some chapters.
At least two per chapter. At
least. Yeah, I was gonna say there were in some chapters. It felt like maybe more.
Yeah, there are some.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. So that was your process of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And then to add to that, Dr. Ebony, I had also been published in Essence magazine, and had written some self-help articles, and I knew this book had to be written in a conversational way.
Okay.
So that was our goal. Also, we didn't want to sound preachy. We didn't want to sound like quote unquote sort of highbrow, highfalutin leadership experts, and we didn't want to talk down to anyone. We were talking to our readers, and we felt that was very important as well.
It feels very much that way.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I mentioned that I listened to the book and that I'm a big audiobook girl, and so I think we talked a little bit off camera about that process. Mm-hmm. But I think in this world it's important I chose to do an audiobook with my book as well
Mhm.
because I realized when I was running and running and running, I was listening to books because I didn't even give myself time to sit down and read. Like it was bonkers. So I
Mhm.
would listen to books and podcasts in the car running from one meeting to the other, or one event to the other. So you guys did an audiobook as well. Uh,
Yes.
but that audiobook is not narrated by you all. There is a narrator. And so I'm curious how that process worked, how you decided to use a narrator, and what the process of choosing the right narrator looks like.
Well, I think, for our first book, we weren't really involved with the narration process. So we wanted to make sure we were involved this time around, and had a conversation with our agent about us narrating versus, a professional narrator narrating. And, there's a lot of work involved with narration. I mean, there's a lot of, in my experience as a producer working with audio announcers, my career at HBO and Showtime, it we hired professionals, and I knew the work that would be required and how many times we'd have to repeat or review or be even available to
Right.
read the book, all of these chapters. And um, we opted to have a professional do it, and they sent us some, like, maybe three or four choices. We listened to the three or four choices. I asked for a different type of voice, someone who kind of resonated as African American. I don't know if the first one did or not, but she was, we were told. But they gave us a second round of voices, and there was one that I liked and shared with Marsha and Rhonda, and we all agreed that that would be the person to narrate. So
Mhm.
I haven't listened to the audiobook, so hopefully she did a good job,
She
Dr.
did a great job.
She
She did a
did.
great job.
She did. And
Yeah.
I do just want to share that something you said, Dr. Ebony, about listening to the book, because that's the only way you can really get that content coming into you because your schedule is so heavy. And I think that's true. But I do want to say the book is in hard copy, it's in digital form, and also audiobook. And I will tell you, as someone who's coaching clients who are leaders in both the public and private sectors, they too, like you, Dr. Ebony, listen to, one of them listens to 200 audiobooks a year, which to me is kind of overly ambitious.
Ooh.
Um, but I found that some people have come to me because they were listening to the book or reading to the book, and without marketing, looking for clients, they have come to ask me to work with them. And I know that was true for Marsha as well, that once people were aware of what was in the book, and that, Marsha and I were coaches, that they came to ask us to work with them. So we are really hoping, and I'm so grateful to hear you say that it does feel like we're speaking directly to you, because we want you to feel that you can do these things, because we're only telling you things that we learn from trying to do them ourselves, or watching other people do them, or in some of the missteps, as Elaine says, that Marsha would say. I've definitely stepped on some landmines. There's some things that, oh my Lord, if I had only known better, I would not have done that. So we try to be as real as we can about things you might not want to do as you're building out your career.
Yeah, yeah. So I asked you to share that because I'm sure there are some aspiring authors out there, and they're wondering. And I will tell you guys, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna read my own book because I don't want to spend the money to pay somebody. I didn't have the experience you had, Elaine, to know what that meant when I said
Mm-hmm.
I was going to do it. And so I remember the audio engineer saying to me, okay, that's enough for today. And I said, well, no, I can read, I can keep going. And she was like, your voice isn't even going to hold up. Like,
Right.
what are you doing? Right. And so I had to learn. I am extremely grateful for going through that process, but it is a process.
Yeah.
Yes.
Edits and
Like to
the
argue it.
repeats and the come back and say this again and say
Exactly. Pick up this
yeah,
line. Yeah, it's a lot of work. I,
It
I
is.
admire I admire those people. I mean, I thought I might want to be one of those people because I work with them all the time, and they made it look so easy. But it's not. It's challenging. But they do it for a living. So we
yeah,
said, They could do it for they could do it for
Yeah,
us.
well, they're voice
Fine.
actors. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
voice
exactly.
actors. I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And I do have several friends who have recorded their own books. One of them actually is one of our endorsers for this book, Jane Hyun, who's an amazing global fluency leadership expert. But she talks about how many days it took and how much time it took to go downtown, get in the studio, as you did, Dr. Ebony, for your book. And unfortunately, we just didn't have the time to do
Yeah,
that. We had too much else going on.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
The next book, I might make a different decision. It's a ton of work. So there are so many. Listen, we just there's so many jewels in this book. I'm going to describe it as like the pot at the end of the rainbow. Right, there is so much there, so much that you can get from it. I want to ask a few more questions, and one of those questions is there anything that is not in the book that you would tell your former self? The book is out and you're like, you know what? It should have been 41 chapters. Yeah, one more chapter to write.
To be honest with you, I can't think of a thing. I don't know if Rhonda can think of anything.
I don't. I think one of the things I love about our process, and we had dear Marcia, our beloved Marcia, with us, we spent many, many, many hours really struggling with what needed to be in. And then this around, because what Elaine said, which is so true, Random House came back to us and said, do you have anything more to say now that the way the world works has changed? We were like, oh, hell yes, we have a lot more to say. And so this book is 2/3 new content. So that we feel like you need all three books, not just this one and leave out the other. It's like they each kind of evolved into the next. But I think this one, we really struggled with things like leading from a place of vulnerability, leading after loss. And one thing that I'm really proud of that I struggled with myself, I wasn't sure whether it's right, is, you don't really have to. And we were taught as Black people, and definitely as Black women, you cannot show uncertainty. You cannot show vulnerability. You cannot, you got to know. I'm sorry. There's just no way to know. The world is on fire. Things are chaotic and crazy. And the decision you made yesterday may not hold today. So I've had to backtrack, which I felt like such a failure as a leader, when I had to say, well, I've learned something today that we didn't know last week. So I need to sort of undo some of what we said we were going to do. Well, I thought that was just, job killer. Well, it doesn't have to be. It's all in the way that you do it. And I found that if you say new information has come to light, here's what we've learned, here's how it could impact our plans for the future, that's received, differently. And I think, but we must give ourselves permission to do that. So all that to say, we thought hard about maybe talking, and Elaine is really the best at talking about emotional intelligence, which some people mistakenly seem to think is a soft skill. Oh no, this is hard skill 101. You better be emotionally intelligent, or your butt's gonna be out on the street. You don't have no job.
Yes, really.
And just to add to what Rhonda said, I mean, there were some chapters that we thought of to write for this book that we didn't include in the first book. And like Rhonda said, leading after loss, leading with vulnerability, and also authenticity, to be or not to be yourself, which was a question that when we would have talks would come up a lot from a lot of our audience. And so we decided to, take that information and include it and write a chapter about authenticity. So those are the three chapters that kind of stand out that we thought as a group that we needed to speak about in this particular book.
Yeah. And the one thing too that we didn't have in the book before, that we learned that people were using our first book for, is entrepreneurship. And Marcia had a 12-year plan. She's the only person I met. I barely have a 1-week plan. So Marcia had a 12-year plan, which she executed. We watched her do it. She planned her retirement. She had a very successful coaching business, global coaching business. So in this book, we talk about the steps you should take before you start your own business. So we did that on purpose, because even before we knew about all these layoffs of all of our fabulous sisters, we know that Black women are the fastest growing source of new business and jobs than any other group. And now, even more particularly now. So we did our best to do some research, and Marcia, of course, gave us the benefit of her wisdom and her experience. So that also was not in the first book. So I agree with Elaine. I mean, maybe there's something we didn't think of, but we tried hard to think of everything we thought that might be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and there is so much in there. Listen, I personally, I'm gonna, of course, link the book down below in the show notes. I will also be gifting the book to some
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
so important. Absolutely. So I guess two questions to wrap us up here. First question being, we've learned a lot about what you've done to this point. We've learned a lot about the book. To somebody listening who says, hey, I want to keep up with Elaine. I want to keep up with Rhonda. I want to know what they're doing in the future. What does the future hold? Where can they find you? How do they follow you?
Well, they can find us on IG. I guess we're starting to do TikTok, some social media. We have a website that we really do need to update. We're in the process of doing that. I'm writing primarily. That's what I'm actually picked up now that this book is wrapped and we're starting our book tour. I'm finding some time to continue on my third novel. I'm on the third draft of my third novel. And that's what I'm doing, and looking for some part-time writing, because it's always nice to generate a little income. I don't necessarily coach, but who knows, Dr. Ebony? I am open to whatever God has for me, because I don't know what this next phase is going to bring as a result of this book. You know, I have a few speaking engagements at colleges and universities. So that's kind of where I want to start, and some keynotes speaking about the book and just getting the message out there and continuing Marcia's legacy. I mean, what the three of us had started in 2010, we find there's a need for this type of conversation now more than ever. So that's kind of.
Well, I would encourage people to go to the littleblackbookofsuccess.com. We have 20,000 followers on Facebook. We also can be reached through our website. I'm at rjmleads, rjmleads.com, and can be reached through that website. We also have on TikTok, it's the next LBB. Please follow us. We're posting 90-second videos that include little vignettes from the book on various leadership issues, and Miss Marcia is included in those. So we have about 90-second videos that, in fact, while we were on, I just got a notice that one of them was posted while we were with you. So we are booking events. So we want to let your audience know we'll be traveling to other states. Elaine is in New Jersey. I'm in New York. And so we're looking forward to doing some in-person events as well as these wonderful podcasts. Thank you again for having us. But also on Amazon.com, please follow us and please post a review of the book. And that way you can see, you can see some of what we're doing. But we're pretty easy to find. If you Google us, each of us, including Marcia Haygood, a lot will come up for you, and you'll see what we're doing and what we'll be doing next.
Gotcha. I am looking for you on TikTok right now. TikTok is not my thing.
Yeah, no, it wasn't ours either. But once again, you said talk to the young people. So the young people got us on TikTok.
Yep. My children have told me, Ma, you need to be on TikTok. And I'm like, TikTok.
I know. I'm new to social media, Dr. Ebony. I'm trying to jump on board. It's happening slowly but surely. But Rhonda's been the keeper of the social media. That's her thing. So that's been great.
Well, to the extent that I can, there's a lot I still don't know that I'm learning. But what I love about this time is that we can learn from each other. And Elaine talked about multi-generational workforces, and they're also global workforces. And I forgot to mention another important addition to this book is how to manage a global, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial, multi-age, multi-gender, and gender preference workforce. So we do talk about that in, I think, at least 2 different chapters, because I can tell you that the people I was managing 10 years ago is very different from, almost everything I'm doing now. And I'm sitting on a number of boards. It involves people who are in other countries, in other time zones. And we all are trying to get the same, you know, chunk of work done. It can't
Yes,
be done in the way we used to do it. It's just not possible. We've got to be more flexible.
absolutely. So I think I followed you on TikTok. When
Yay.
when we get done, I'll have my son double check because he's working on that with me. So one last question for you, and it is the question that I like to ask all of my guests. You guys have had phenomenal careers, phenomenal success across multiple platforms, if you will. Career success as entrepreneurs in the workplace, as mentors, as board members, all of those things. I am very curious if they were to make a movie of your lives, individually or as a group, you choose. What would they call that movie or movies, and who would play the main characters?
Rhonda.
We were laughing about this question earlier, Dr. Ebony. We've never been asked this question before. I've never been asked this question before. So, Elaine, you go first.
Oh, you want me to go first? All right. You did say movie and you did say TV series. So, the first thing that popped into my head, because it was a fun question, was Angela Bassett would play me.
Yes.
And I'm like, what movie? And I asked myself, well, why Angela Bassett? Well, first of all, she's phenomenal. She's fabulous. She's beautiful. And I loved her arms when she played Tina Turner in that, movie. His name I can't recall.
What love got to do with it?
Of course, with Lawrence Fishburne playing Ike, but also because I love Tina Turner. When I was actually at Showtime, I had the fortune to interview Tina Turner when she kicked off her concert in Amsterdam. And I've referred to her as my big sister ever since. And she's always been someone I've admired, someone who's overcome adversity, sort of self-made woman, come from small town and had, these horrible experiences, became a Buddhist and survived. And not that I had those horrible experiences, but I consider myself to some extent being, a self-made woman who came from a small town in New Jersey and became, through, I'm not a Buddhist, but I did touch upon Buddhism at some point in my life and started calling myself a Christian Buddhist, but I don't do the Buddhism anymore, but I'm a Christian, and became successful. So in a nutshell, just, Tina Turner is one of my heroes.
And I would approach this differently. My understanding was the question is, what would the movie, if they made a movie about you, what would it be and who would play you? So the name of my movie would be And Still I Rise. I'm a great lover and follower of Dr. Maya Angelou. And so I think And Still I Rise just stands for the resilience of Black people, but most particularly Black women. And so I've risen from many a difficult and chaotic situation, as have each of you, as has Marsha throughout her life, as many people that we know. And as a people, we weren't even supposed to make it across the diaspora. And yet here we are, 40, 50 million strong. I don't think we tell the truth in the census. So I think there are more of us in this country than are counted. But so I would say, And Still I Rise. And I'm going to go back a little bit. And I think her name was Paula Sands. I hope I'm saying the name right. But for me, because of the shape of my face, I grew up at a time when people were very critical of people who look like me. We were not considered pretty. You needed to look more white. So you'd have keener features or smaller lips. And actually had people, Black people, meaning well, say that to me. And of course, it's very hurtful. You're a little girl. And basically, they're telling you there's no hope for you to ever be pretty because you don't look right. And so for me to see a Black woman on stage and Black women in the theater, Ruby and Cicely and Paula and others who look like me, I was like, oh my God, Miriam Makeba also comes to mind. So that there are these beautiful Black women who had features that were like mine. And I was like, well, there's hope for me. So I would say I'm just blessed and grateful to be here and happy to look the way I look. And I'm still rising.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Listen, this conversation could probably go on forever. And just a little side note to our listeners, it probably will go on after we cut the cameras off, right? I just would like to thank you guys, Elaine, Rhonda. Thank you so much for being here. Again, in loving memory of Marcia. Thank you so
for
much
saying
for
that.
carrying her legacy.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. To our listeners out there, go grab the book. You need it. It's full. It's 40 chapters of greatness. Go get it. Yes, there you go. The Next Little Black Book of Success. Go get it. It's linked down below. And then make sure if you don't already have it, grab that other book that's linked down below too, right? And until next time, we will see you. You keep spreading that Black girl magic on everything you do. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.